This story is about what happens when someone has unusual urges and desires, and after holding themselves back for a long time, they finally give in, and it costs someone their life. This video is intended for educational and documentary purposes. The content within this video contains themes that some individuals may consider triggering, offensive, or disturbing. The intent is not to disrespect viewers or any individual spoken about herein. Viewer discretion is advised. Hi everyone, my name is Kimbyrleigha. If you've never been here before, nice to meet you. And if you've been here for some time with me, thank you first of all if you're a new subscriber. I don't like intros. I'm a viewer on YouTube and I prefer people to jump right in, which is what I usually do if you've been here before. But today I have something quick I want to say to all of you. I've gotten some comments recently about my censorship, and a lot of people are confused as to why I don't say certain things in my videos. This video is going to be uncensored, so I'm going to say everything that I need to say in this video. I wanted to clarify that no, I am not afraid to talk about things like incest or rape or sexual assault or cannibalism. The list goes on. Not only did I study serial killers when I was getting my degree in psychology, but I also graduated from law school. So I've heard some of the most heinous crimes you could possibly imagine. None of that stuff bothers me, but guess who it does bother? Advertisers here on YouTube. Censorship has become a really big deal when it comes to advertising. YouTube now gives advertisers the ability to blacklist words, channels, and genres, and true crime is one of them. Advertisers just don't want their ads on channels that talk about the things I just mentioned. Someone left a comment saying that they watch a lot of other YouTube channels. These bigger channels do get sponsorships for their videos, and therefore they don't have to rely on YouTube revenue, which is something that I hope will happen to me one day. But for right now, I will get demonetized if I say any of those things, but I'm taking the hit today, and I've promised I will take the hit every now and then so I can express myself and talk about these heinous, disgusting, and gruesome crimes. I hope you enjoy. This story is about Issei Sagawa. He was born April 26, 1949 in Kobe, Japan. He was born to a wealthy family, but he was born prematurely, so he was so tiny he could fit in his father's palm. Unfortunately, he did suffer from severe health problems as an infant, and he almost died as a result of inflammation of his small intestine. Issei would continue to be small and sickly for the rest of his life. Regardless, Issei's childhood was actually quite pleasant. He had a loving and supportive group of friends and family, but his poor health still affected him. His parents were actually very overprotective, and they even spoiled him because they wanted to make sure he had everything. But we'll soon find out they couldn't give him everything he wanted. Issei has said that the only issue he ever had with his upbringing was the lack of sexual education. And I don't know how it is in Japan, but I know here in the United States, we definitely get sex ed. That didn't happen where he was from. He just didn't understand what was happening to his body, which is very sad and unfortunate that he didn't have someone there that could really explain this to him in a way that wasn't shameful. The first time he ever had an erection, he actually thought something was wrong with him. It's no surprise that he started to link shame with sex. And this would go all throughout his childhood and through adulthood. He was also very short, and he was just under 5 feet tall. He had very small hands and small feet, and people described his voice to sound more like a woman. Issei was extremely self-conscious of his appearance, and later he would say he felt like he wasn't the kind of man that most women would find attractive. This feeling might have fueled his obsession with the perfect woman. Issei was suffering from an inferiority complex, and therefore he actually sought out people who were the exact opposite. The problem was that Issei's desires were not limited to ordinary sexual acts. He had a more sinister idea about what sex should be like. He had a strong urge to eat the flesh of another person. His cannibalism fantasies started at a very young age. He remembers seeing his own classmates' thick thighs at school and thinking, that looks delicious. Now, in and of itself, I mean, we do use words like delicious when we're talking about how sexy someone is. But in this case, he actually meant delicious as in would taste good if he ate it. According to Issei, this desire was purely sexual. He didn't actually want to kill anyone, but, if we're being realistic here, you would have to in order to eat their flesh. Am I right? It's not that he wanted to eat a human being every time he was hungry. However, if he didn't ejaculate frequently enough, then this urge and this desire would build up in him. He explained that the desire would get stronger and stronger. So he attempted to bring his fantasy to life for the first time when he was 24 years old. He was studying at Waco University in Tokyo. He had become interested in a tall, blonde German woman. He would later say, quote, "When I saw this woman in the street, I wondered, could I eat her? Creepy." Eventually, Issei followed this woman to her home one night and climbed through her apartment second floor window. He was going all out if he actually went that far up to get inside. He had planned to hit her over the head and then take parts of her flesh while she was unconscious and take them home and eat them. However, this did not work out for Issei, and the woman woke up when he broke into the apartment, and understandably, she started screaming immediately. Issei was then captured by the police, and he was charged with attempted rape, but nobody really knew what his intentions truly were. His father would use his wealth and influence to cover up his son's crime. A few years after the incident, when he was now 27 years old, he moved to France to pursue a PhD in literature. Almost every night, Issei would bring a prostitute home, and he would try to shoot them. And he tried and tried again, but for some reason he just could not pull the trigger. He would later say it was instinct that stopped his hand from moving, because he knew better. And like he said, he didn't want to exactly kill someone, he just wanted to know what it was like to taste flesh. And he knew that his life would be over in the exact second that he shot the girl. But in the end, Issei's compulsion was too strong for him to resist. While he was in Paris, he met a Dutch woman named Renée. She was studying for a PhD in French literature. She was tall and beautiful, and Issei just could not get her perfectly smooth skin out of his mind. He had to find a way to get close to her, so he hired her as his private German teacher, using his father's money. The two actually hit it off right away. They had a lot in common. They loved art and poetry. They actually ended up doing a lot of things together. They went to concerts, they went to art galleries together, and Renée even wrote home to her family in Holland. And she said that she found him to be friendly and intellectual, but the relationship was nothing more to Renée than just a friendship. While Issei, on the other hand, hoped for something more. And as each one of his romantic advances towards Renée were rejected, he finally decided that this would be the right time to fulfill his lifelong fantasy. One afternoon, June 11th, 1981, Issei invited Renée to his apartment for dinner and some poem reading. When she sat down and started reading, he moved up behind her and shot her in the neck with a .22 rifle, obviously killing her instantly. He actually fainted from the shock of finally shooting somebody, but when he woke up, he was determined to carry out his plan. He needed to taste her. He wanted to know the taste of a beautiful woman. Issei tried to chew through Renée's buttocks, but he couldn't. He just couldn't bite through her skin because it was so thick and meaty in that area. Even the knives he had weren't good enough to cut the meat, so he left to buy a butcher knife. Then, when he finally was able to reach the red part of the meat, he tore a chunk off with his fingers and threw it into his mouth. Finally, at the age of 32, Issei Sagawa had his first taste of human flesh. And he later said, quote, "It was truly a historical moment for me. You are sick." This one was hard for me to digest, and there's going to be more gruesome descriptions coming, so if this is already bothering you, I would turn away, because I'm going to be showing some things that might disgust you. He then proceeded to eat more parts of Renée's body. Some he would eat raw, some he actually cooked. He found the neck, thighs, and tongue the most delicious just in case you were wondering. But he said the soles of her feet tasted terrible. He actually took pictures of Renée's mutilated body and had sex with it late into the night while listening to a recording of German poetry. It's an interesting mix right there. The next day, he actually ate more of the body, but then it was time to get rid of it. He chopped off her limbs and some other body parts, cut the corpse into pieces with a hatchet, and he would hold Renée's decapitated head by the hair in front of him, thinking, "I'm a cannibal. You're not just that. You're a disgusting human being with no soul." He proceeded to stuff all the pieces of her body into 2 suitcases and planned to dump them into a lake. However, a small man carrying 2 big, heavy suitcases is very eye-catching. A couple drove by and they actually stopped to stare at him struggling with these suitcases. So he just decided to leave the bags under some bushes. The couple was understandably pretty curious of why he just discarded of these big suitcases, so they approached the bags and opened them to find out what was inside. What they found was the bloody, mutilated torso of a woman. The police were called immediately, and it didn't take long to track down Issei. The couple told the police that he was a small Asian man, and a taxi cab company was able to tell them who the driver was that had picked Issei up and took him to the lake. The driver said that he picked up an Asian man at a very expensive apartment building and actually asked him if there was a body inside the heavy suitcases. Can you imagine? Issei was actually the only person living in that building who fit the witness's description. Authorities arrived at his apartment just 48 hours later, where they found more pieces of Renée's body in the refrigerator and a partially eaten meal of vegetables and human flesh left on the table. Issei never denied anything. Instead, he says, quote, "I killed her to eat her flesh." It's pretty obvious. There's no doubt that Issei Sagawa is guilty of a horrible murder, and everyone would have thought he would spend the rest of his life behind bars. However, the French court psychiatrists concluded that he was insane, a sexual psychopath, and therefore unfit to stand trial. He was then sent to an asylum for the criminally insane. And of course, he didn't like this sentence, but he thought, you know what? I have spare time. Why don't I write a book about my life and make a whole bunch of illustrations about what I did to this poor woman? And he was actually approached by a Japanese author who published this book in Japan under the title In the Fog. The book was actually an instant hit and became a bestseller, making him famous. When I heard this, and there's more, I could not believe it. Why do we glorify these type of individuals? In 1984, Issei's father was actually able to work out a deal with the French authorities, and he had Issei transferred to a psychiatric hospital. And this was back in Japan. He wouldn't spend a lot of time there because his father had money, and of course, he was able to pull some strings. Issei was declared criminally insane, and the case against him in France was sealed. So none of the paperwork could be given to the Japanese authorities. Therefore, Japan had nothing they could use against him. Is that a coincidence? I think not. And after just 15 months, this confessed murderer, cannibal, and necrophile completely walked free. After his release, and for a very brief moment in time, Issei was a celebrity. He appeared on a number of TV interviews, game shows, and this is so gross, cooking shows. He even appeared in some pornos. Wow, I'm blown away. He went on to write 19 books and erotic graphic novels, and he was able to live off of all the royalties along with his large inheritance after his parents died. So he was just living the life even though he killed an innocent woman. But as it often happens in such cases, the public interest dried up. eventually, along with his inheritance, and Issei was forced to move to public housing and live off of welfare benefits. So maybe this is going to be a happy ending. In a 2012 interview with Vice, Issei said he still dreams of consuming humans again. Quote, "Just today, I saw a girl with a really nice derriere on my way to the train station. When I see things like that, I think about wanting to eat someone again before I die. So yes, I do still harbor these desires, and I specifically want to eat a Japanese woman this time." Wow, be careful. He should not have been walking the streets. These dreams might have changed because his health started to take a turn for the worse. By 2013, he was diagnosed with cerebral infarction. Issei is now in a wheelchair and needs daily assistance. Most likely, he will not be tasting human flesh ever again. Thank God. So there we have it, uncensored and disgusting. This isn't even the worst ones that I want to talk about, but I hope you enjoyed, if you could enjoy a video like this, considering what we just heard. But I do thank you so much for subscribing to my channel. Let me know if you have any comments, questions, feedback below, but always be kind and I will answer as many as I can. Thank you so very much for watching. I will see you in my next video. Bye.